H, or whatever you're saying. Do you need this?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put it on here.
Okay, so most of the 1 hour is going to be on the NC, but it's going to be like quick extensions from the AC. And then
Okay.
so start at the top with AC.
Yeah, 130.
Yeah.
So ACNC.
Actually, NCAC, just start with NC. Just make it simple.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
NCAC.
That made it more less simple, but okay.
Sorry about that. So I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
He's conceding cross-states that all humans have rights, and therefore all those humans have to create those rights through the moral community. So if I prove that outline that some humans are not part of the moral community and some non-humans can, which means that the NC is not gay, and you're going to be affirming on the NC. So, 1. There's no more significant intrinsic difference between all humans and all non-humans than Mayhem 1. Human beings have capacity for self-conscious, rationality, autonomy, language, action, the basic reason, and so on. Yet according to the common understanding, what is to have a capacity? Some human beings lack all such capacity to be dependent, irreversibly comatose, lack them now, but have them in the past. Most fetuses and newborn infants lack them now, but have the potential to have them in the future. Some human beings that are congenitally, radically, cognitively impaired have never had the capacity and also lack the potential to have them. Among those human beings who possess some of the capacity there are some who do not possess them all, while among those who possess them there are some of whom the relevant capacity is more highly developed there than others. One solution to my objection is that to identify the potential of these capacities but as a relevant feature, but this solution fails. McMahon. The potential consists in the ability of the genes to drive the growth of the normal human brain, which the physical basic capacity of rationality, the action genes is impaired, and the brain grows abnormally. The potential to grow the normally functioning brain has been lost, but the genes cannot drive the growth of the brain as once it already existed. Even at this point, those genes can drive the reconstruction or augmentation of the defective brain and identity pursuing with, and the potential interdirecting it towards the rationation would remain, but there's no reason to believe the relevant genes have that capacity. Radically married human beings whose condition results from the blood functioning of normal genes lose the internal directing it towards the possession of rationation very early in life when the development of their brain past a certain point. And there are two reasons, here are two more reasons why my objection is true. McMahon. Consider an instance in which defective human genes direct the human brain to grow in such a way that when fully developed, its cognitive powers are no higher than those of some lower animal. These genes are more closely resemble the corresponding genes of lower animal than do the normally functioning human counterpart, because the defective human genes function to produce or bring the powers of cognition with those of lower animal. They are less similar to the probably functioning human counterparts, the corresponding genes in higher and a higher animal which function to produce a brain with cognitive capacity closer to those of a normally blend. This is how I'm turning into. He's conceding across the nation that all humans have rights. All humans have rights, and they get those rights through the moral community. If he's not winning that all humans have rights, that means you never be negated because I'm winning that there is no moral relevant distinction in all humans and all non-human animals. And there are some non-human animals that do have the rights because was Alan McMahon in heaven. So I went on the NC and go to the counterplay. On the counterplay, first permutation, there's no distinction between use animal welfare and animal rights. There's no distinction whatsoever. You might extend the weight around to the top 8 the rights are merely in times. You confirm my definition because one is better for philosophy ground on this topic because my interpretation allows for diversity, moral anti-realism, and constructivism, different conception of ethics because those don't rely on any absolute conception of rights, while his interpretation would exclude a lot of philosophical literature that grounds key education, grounds key fairness for that. Equal offense give with easier for one debater, it's also key education because it allows us to engage in philosophical discussions about issues. This reason prefer my interpretation. Also, the net benefits are about reduction of suffering. Those don't link to any framework around those very obviously cross-examination. That just links to some definition of animal rights. Those don't link. Counterplay is not relevant. Wasted 3 minutes reading that. But go to the case. Off the top, he says there's my definition is not sufficient to affirm. But first, he should write topicality if he thinks that my definition is not sufficient to affirm. I'm clearly winning this debate on the affirmative cases rights just entitlements. So you can send the analysis underneath the stance of the question of resolution whether it just requires you recognition of the rights for animals. We need not take stance on the content or stringency of those entitlements which rights animals have or whether they're valuable. So this is so as far as that's true, I'm winning. Okay, so he concedes section 1 constructive principle of justice whether certain facts are recognized reasons of right and justice. So go to contention 2, part 2. He says the fallacy. Go to subpoint B. Extend the course guidance to the value from goods of ultimate importance to the value creature. Things are not important to the universe. Individual things are good because they contribute to the parts of wealth function. Creating that is important for some creature. Now, extend the last course guidance is being conceded. This is each animal is subject to it so uniquely their own value from their own perspective. What's important in animals is leaking lives of appetite, safety, may be into the virus because we think they're less individual than we means nothing. His argument is that they don't have pain, that means they don't have desire. That's not true because my answer is that the fact that they can eat and mate and have any appetite sensation is the reason why they confer values from their own perspective, which is the reason why my framework shoot. He's conceding course guard 1, subpoint B, which is I'm winning the normative framework. The arguments he's making against Reagan don't matter. That was just a preempt in the case. I don't need to run Reagan. Those are just not offensive arguments. Now, go back to the NC. Here's another reason why my objection is true. The moral and significant property characteristics of kind do not get to be part of individual nature simply because the individual possesses the closely but contingent correlated properties that are essential members from the kind. Properties that are inessential members from the kind do not define the nature of the kind, either characteristic or typical. So, I'm turning the NC because I'm winning. He's again the I'm winning. I'm turning the NC and winning arguments. Why? Margin cases affirms on the NC. I'm winning the AC as well because he's not making enough arguments.
Okay. So what did you extend from the AC? Course guard 1? Right?
Yep.
That you're winning the
Wait,
normative
no,
frame.
subpoint B in part 2.
That you're winning the normative frame.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. 6 minutes. Okay. Ready? I can see that he wins the normative frame, which means the NC goes away. If course guard, if he wins course guard, then that means if I went off the AC or prove why he doesn't affirm that the NC is irrelevant. He cannot meet the NC burden anymore because if he wins the normative frame, that means the social context is absolutely irrelevant because the only extension of the normative frame that he is winning is that we confer value on other people, or we confer value on ourselves because we confer value on other things and therefore we value ourselves. So that means if I prove that he doesn't affirm off of course guard, the NC is irrelevant. But I'll give me the answer to that later anyway. So he makes the argument he's winning the normative frame, so I can concede the frame of the NC. Then let's talk about, that means the counterplan and the AC are the only ones that are relevant. Then let's talk about the arguments against the contention level. First, on the Reagan evidence, the Bars and Gazzara. He only has one really, really bad response to Bars and Gazzara. He just says the Reagan evidence says that they actually prove some sort of, like, they feel sad and stuff, that they prove some sort of psychological consequence. Do you remember extent that the Bars and Gazzara evidence says they actually did a study where they tested, raised the temperature on a rat. They said that the rat's tail rose, but it wasn't an indication that the rat felt pain. It was an indication of pain behavior. That was just a behavioral stimulus that the rat had in the sterile nerve, which means that it is not something that the animals actually experience. So it disproves the hypothesis that animals actually feel pain. Remember, for my study, because one, it's actually empirical, it's quantified whether or not animals actually feel pain. He's just making vague claims about how animals appear sad. One, he is not quantifying how we know that animals feel sad or how we know whether they're experiencing pain in the first place. Second, we can never know what they are and we can never take their place, which by the way goes along with his frame of course God, that we can't know about other people. We can't confer things on other status, or our perspective is the only that matters, which is my evidence is more relevant to the question of whether or not animals actually feel pain because it's analyzing their own reactions as opposed to whether or not how we perceive their reactions to be. This is the first place why he doesn't affirm, because if animals don't have desires, it is a necessary condition for him to be able to win the AC. In order to win the AC, he has to prove that animals have desires, because it means that they confer value onto whatever they do, therefore they are valuable. If they don't confer value onto anything because they don't value anything in the first place, i.e. they don't feel pain, then that means they're not valuable, or that they're not valuable themselves. Then, so that's the first argument. Then let's go to the top of the AC. First, extend on the Wiener evidence. My argument is that the case does not affirm because he never proves we have some sort of obligation to animals. I.e., he says that we value our own perspective to that, or that we value our own perspective. That means that his case never affirms because it means that we never value the perspective of animals. I.e., that does not necessarily confer rights upon animals. That is just an overarching argument that says that he never affirms because he doesn't prove that obligation equals rights. So this functions independently of any normative frameworks, right? He can't win off the NC and use it to take out this argument. So that means that I'm conceding the normative framework. I'm proving that animals don't have desires. My evidence is better, which means he never affirms. Right? The NC doesn't matter because I'm conceding his normative framework. If we even think the NC matters, then let's go to the NC. On McMahon, on the first McMahon. Marginal humans fall within the immediate extension of the moral community. Animals do not. Fox 3. Although underdeveloped, deficient humans are not full members of the moral community because they lack autonomy. They nevertheless fall within the most immediate extension of the moral community, such as subjects to protect and failure to cultivate, preserve, fail that leaves the way open to systematic abuse of the dignity rights of those educated second-class citizens. Second, we should give marginal humans benefit of the doubt based on their potential for relating to be their similarity, being generally considered the agents. This is in response to the second campaign card in the similarity. Fox 4. All underdeveloped deficiency impaired human beings to be considered bounds of immediately extend the moral community. Therefore, as deserving of equal moral concern, they should be treated according to either A, their potential for full agency has potentially full participants in the moral community, taking into account past participation, and or B, the degree to which their behaving capacities approximate what is generally considered to be characteristic of human, that is typically the case of maturity given normal development, the extent to which their behavior capacities for full participation in the moral community. McMahon just says, like, some people don't have the potential for a moral community, but my argument is that we can still recognize that we have special ties to them, they have that potentiality, or we still have that potentiality. McMahon never actually analyzed that argument. Then, third, we're connected to all human beings. Marginal cases still include violence, but not Fox 5. A chain of love and concern extend from our children, grandchildren, our grandchildren, such like suspicion, common, persistently, continuity, civilization, complete sacrifice, and future human beings. Such chain generally accounts for our concern of those among us who are severely handicapped, grievously disadvantaged, so chain connects to animals, but it is not naturally wrong to direct moral compelling between. Even if we would say that some animals should be included in the moral community, my argument is that we should still prefer humans, or we should still prefer humans in terms of the moral community because we still value them more. The way this interacts is not simply sufficient for it to prove that animals should be part of the moral community. My argument is that he has to defend the rights are inviolable. This is the Cochrane definition. So if rights are viable, I would prefer human rights over animal rights, then it is still not sufficient for him to affirm, right? This is not a burden that I suffer from the 8 and in the NC. This is a burden that I suffer based on the definitional argument. So let's go to the counterclaim in the definition. He's just not understanding how these arguments interact with each other on the flow because he's just saying the counterclaim doesn't make sense, but it makes a lot of sense. So let's go there. Here, counterclaim. Here. First, based on the Cochrane definition, the rights have to be inviolable because they actually set sort of certain legal limits that they define the legal context for rights, and that moral rights are insufficient. He extends for the ACA, the argument he extends from the ACA that he just doesn't have to defend this. My argument is that he does have to defend this because I'm actually contextualizing what animal rights are. He just defines that they are rights against interference. My argument is that that does not give the content of whether or not they are violable or inviolable because you have a right to non-interference, but that doesn't specify the content of that obligation. My argument is that my evidence is the only one that specifies that content, which means you should still prefer it. Then, on his permutation, he does not say what the permutation is.